In late July, the Trinity Choir had the privilege of being the choir in residence at Canterbury Cathedral in England. Each day, they walked up the lane from the hotel to the cathedral for both rehearsal and also for leading the music of choral evensong. For those who have not been to Canterbury Cathedral, this cathedral is the oldest cathedral in the Church of England, established in 597. I did not forget a 1 before that number. A mammoth building, it incorporates several styles of architecture that were built along the way. It has endured monarchs, controversy, and it has been a place of worship for nearly 1,500 years. Majestically, the building is encircled by the town, and internally, there is a lower nave, the space for the congregation. Then stairs that go down to the crypt, the fancy word for where the tombs and some chapels are. And then up some stairs to the chancel, the fancy word for where the monastic community was and where the choir sat. More stairs then from the chancel take you up to the altar, and then even more stairs take you up to a single chair. The chair, or cathedra, fancy word for chair, is the throne of the Archbishop of Canterbury. And it sits at the top of all of those stairs in the cathedral. The position that presides over the entire Anglican communion. This chair has been around since St. Augustine. Sorry, I lived in Florida. I always have to play in my brain how I emphasize that name. Since he had held that first position. And unremarkably, the chair is not of gold. It is not large with ornamentation, but rather, this cathedra is short, it's made of stone, and is only sat in by the ABC, or the Archbishop of Canterbury. To be honest, other than having the best view of the rest of the church, the chair is not spectacular in architecture when it comes to chairs. Its positioning, though, signals that this position is most supreme, respected, and the highest. Now, never fear, none of us mistakenly sat in that chair. And in fact, no one sat in that chair while we were there. The cathedra is actually rarely used, and the Archbishop of Canterbury position is currently vacant. And yet we could see that cathedra every day during choral evensong. Who will be the next person in that seat? Could it be a woman? Maybe. As a choir chaperone, I watched people come and go that week, sitting in the chairs that had been made in the chancel area at the foot of the altar, sitting in their favorite seat to see the choir or the priests or the piece of art that they contemplate every time they go to evensong. And from there, watching people and processions, people coming and going for prayer. So I ask you, what is your favorite chair? Where do you watch the world and its comings and goings on? For me, there is a big yellow overstuffed chair at a lake house that holds my heart. It's one you can sit in all day, you could sleep in it all night, and if needed, you could even work from home in that chair. It is delightful. From the chair, you can watch the lake just over the top of your screen or your book, and those who are paddling about in it for fun. We own a couple of chairs in my house that we call the tiny bum chairs because they are very uncomfortable unless you are tiny and the size of an 18th century Dutch person for whom they were actually made. I have a sermon chair in my house, and I have a favorite chair in the coffee shop down the road. Are they fancy? Are they expensive? Is that why the chairs are our favorite? Nah. The chairs are what they are because of the experiences that we have had in them. Made of stone or of wood, of cozy materials. The material is just a part of the story, but not the actual focal point. Growing up, sitting around the dinner table in my assigned chair, because we could not sit in chairs without fighting, I was taught which fork to use when, who should sit at the head of the table, and who should sit by whom. There were protocols. And yet, all of those protocols were thrown out the window at the end of those long, long school days, complete with after-school activities. Our dinner would be sitting at that dining room table, ready to be reheated, and my mom would sit at the table with us for company, no matter how grumpy or surly we were as teenagers. What mattered most was being beside the person at the meal. These days, we encounter tables and chairs in different ways. Our tables may have stayed the same, or they've changed. They've expanded because of new members, or they've shrunk because we've moved households. Our dining room tables may now include empty chairs as children leave the nest, because a loved one has died, because relationships have changed, or perhaps because we're always hoping that one more person will arrive to fill that seat. In our gospel reading today, Jesus is invited to dinner, and after he arrives, he people watches. Just as the Pharisees have been watching Jesus and his actions and his movements, Jesus now watches the Pharisees and their actions and movements. He watches how they choose the seating protocol, dictating conversations, perpetuating the status and contractual obligations of each person sitting by the next, either expecting something in return or demanding respect merely because of position. Jesus has thoughts and feelings about these dinner party protocols, and he shares them out loud. I can see him smirking and going, "Y'all just don't get it. It's not about the chair. Friends, you have it all wrong, and I'm going to tell you a story that's going to make you scratch your head all about the protocol you have been living into and manipulating. Gather around the table to build relationship," Jesus says. Gather to eat with one another, not due to honor and obligation, rather to listen to each other. Gather together due to care and compassion, the desire to break bread and be with each other. We all eat. We all desire companionship. A meal is made with love for those whom you love. Graciously accepting an invitation should be done so without worry or concern about obligation, because you have accepted that invitation. The invitation that Jesus gives to us is to make space to be present in the chair that we find ourselves. Jesus invites us into more deeply discovering the person beside us, learning more about who God is in their life, and where blessings can be seen, broadening our own horizons and community. The ultimate expression of this table, of course, is the Eucharist. And today we will celebrate baptisms soon, welcoming the newest members into the household of God, and then we'll move to the table and share that holy meal together. Each person shoulder to shoulder at the rail, unexpected neighbors and family together, equally receiving this gift of love. A meal that is specifically for each of us individually and all of us corporately. The banquet table welcomes all, and the only protocol is receiving your invitation and saying yes. Yes to experiencing the love of God who has called you. Yes, even you, into community. A God who loves you enough to want to make you whole and restore you to the fullness of your potential. Restore you in the midst of the brokenness of this world and the individual hardship within your own life. A God who fills each chair, empty or full, around the table with the opportunity for love to guide the next chapter. This week, I was sitting in my favorite coffee seat in a cafe, and I looked up, and I overheard a small child crying directly across from me a couple tables over. And with my AirPods in, I did what I do. I smiled really hugely at this small child, and I waved, who had just been placed in the most restrictive of all seats, the indestructible restaurant high chair. Crushed by his unexpected incarceration, his world was shattered, and he wailed as his only sole source of consolation. Upon seeing my face, though, forgetting his newfound prison, he laughed. And then he began a game of hide and seek, with moving his table number in front of his face, much to his parents' dismay, into his mouth, and away from his face. I could see he was an expert hide and seek player. His father, after being puzzled as to what was going on from wailing to laughter, looked up and saw my face across the tables and started laughing too. It was a fleeting moment, and I found myself in an unexpected seat of joy because we both looked up and met each other where we were. Jesus loved the people around him immediately and intensely. He loved those Pharisees, disciples, and crowds. His clever wordplay this week in his parable invited the Pharisees to take themselves less seriously, to think less of the direct results and easily seen tactics. And instead, he wanted the Pharisees to lean into grace, into love, and the why beneath the protocol. Similarly, we too are to look up, to be surprised by who might be across the table from us. Tables are made for all to gather. Seats should be plentiful. Positions are for governance, not gloating. They're for enhancing the beloved community, not exploiting it. And while seats may sometimes be uncomfortable, we're always gathering around the table. We have work to do. And sometimes the seat doesn't always fit. Perhaps it was made for someone else and needs updating. Sometimes the chair is just perfect. And in that perfection, is that a good thing to encourage to help forward movement? Or is it a bad thing that encourages complacency? If we start from the seat that we are in, I wonder where God will lead us from table to table in chairs and chapters of love in our life. As we head into this new academic year, with the newest members of our church included, what new tables and chairs might you find yourself in? Where might your heart be expanded in a new space? My hope is that our hearts and lives will swell with God's presence gratefully and graciously. Amen.